Hello and welcome to this special episode of Focus On. I'm Akin Obakeye. On this episode, we'll be bringing you highlights from the 3-day Mastercard Foundation's EdTech Conference holding in the Federal Capital Territory in Nigeria. According to organizers, this conference seeks to provide solutions to the issues affecting the growth of education technology in Africa, and more importantly, provide that synergy and that platform for stakeholders to converge and collaborate to provide growth and opportunities in the sector. It's the inaugural edition of Mastercard Foundation's EdTech Conference 2024. The theme, Education Technology for Resilient and Inclusive Learning in Africa, highlights how best Africa can take advantage of technology to improve access to quality education, particularly for the most underserved communities. The event brings together stakeholders and government to discuss how to address issues like collaboration, funding, infrastructure, among others. The conference kicks off with remarks by Peter Matero, the Chief Program Officer at Mastercard Foundation, and Nigeria's Minister of Education, Tahir Maman.
It's a great moment to have a conversation by Africa, in Africa, for Africa, on how we can leverage technology, working together to drive resilient and inclusive learning in the continent. This is really an important moment for all of us. As many of you know, education is a core pillar of the Mastercard Foundation's mission. And so for us, this is critical to everything else that we do. In the Mastercard Foundation, our vision is a world where everyone, irrespective of his or her beginnings, has the opportunity to learn and prosper. And as such, investing in education for us is a pathway for enabling everyone, and especially young people in Africa, who are the majority and the future, so that in the medium to long term, they can not only get education, but also gain access to dignified and fulfilling work, which will give them the wings to fly on their own into their futures. By 2050, the young people in Africa are going to be the largest proportion of the world's workforce. So investing in education in Africa is not only about Africa, but rather it is about investing in human capital for the world. It's about enabling young people in Africa to seize the opportunity, not only in Africa, but globally.
It's us, the older ones, who are struggling to understand and deploy technology. For the younger ones, it is native to them. It is part and parcel of them already. The toddlers, from the time they begin to work, technology is part of them. So it's a question of nurturing what to learn and giving them some content. So for me, technology is both an enabler, it is empowering, and it is also a very important incentive for schooling, for coming school attendance. There are programs that we are running right now in education with the World Bank, and some actually even by ourselves. Because even the ministry, maybe another example is when the COVID thing came in, the ministry trained about 35,000 teachers within that period to deliver lessons and then develop all sorts of lessons. So it was very, very active in delivering education support and services even within that period.
The high-level opening panel addresses strategic collaboration for inclusive EdTech innovation while fostering learning opportunities for all.
We're a continent where 70% of our people are under the age, for Nigeria, for instance, under the age of 30. About 40% in total for the continent is under the age of 15, which when you compare it to the rest of the world, which is about 25, you understand that we do have a significant challenge of ensuring that education is truly inclusive. because it is something that we must provide for everyone. And to answer your question, Rosie, technology doesn't start by being inclusive. So the focus should be on why is inclusion important. When you look at most developed society, population is aging. They're not giving birth to more people. So workforce is declining. And those nations and the world will look to continents like Africa to actually try and help our workforce. But the challenge we have as leaders and stakeholders is that if we don't find tremendous new ways of educating our people en masse and ensuring that we give them the right skill set, we'll fail the world.
When you're designing a product, for instance, you want to ensure that learners with disability, for example, are able to use that platform or are able to use the tool that you design. You also have to think about learners who are on the move, refugees, people who are displaced. How are they able to use that solution which you design? And so you're also looking at the different backgrounds, contextualizing with a culture in mind. Something that is designed for the West might not necessarily work here in Nigeria if you don't take into account the context of the area in which you are deploying your solution.
We are using education technology to address specific needs of learners and learning as well. So, if this is the way we are taking it, basically, we need to be specific. We know those are issues cut across from access, so access to technology for specific learners, and we know those learners are across the countries, so the regions. So, how do you address the issue of connectivity in a city like Lagos or Abuja may differ from how you're going to address it in a remote place, where there's no electricity, where there's no roads, and so on and so forth.
The Mastercard Foundation says it has deployed about $3.7 billion since its inception to drive equitable access to learning for young people. With over 200 tech hubs in Africa, funding constraints have slowed growth in the EdTech sector. This panel explores investment opportunities in the African EdTech ecosystem.
We don't think that Africa is short of capital as much as it is short of risk capital, right? Capital that can be more patient, capital that can be more risk-oriented, capital that can be more nurturing of innovation. Because if every one of us queue at the doors of return, commercial, plain vanilla, commercially viable financing, and it doesn't mean that this other EdTech is not commercially viable. I'm saying that versus the impact opportunity that is available on the continent, the pots of capital trying to engage those impact opportunities are not congruent with those impact opportunities. So you find $10 million ticket sizes, $50 million ticket sizes, regular, return profile, regular exit tenor, whereas the preponderance of impact opportunity, including EdTech on the continent, are more lower ticket sizes, requiring long patience, requiring a little bit more disproportionate risk orientation. So we're saying that there needs to be more and more catalytic capital on the continent to be able to enable, impact entities like EdTech and other types of businesses.
We've looked at maybe 800 plus opportunities within East Africa and across Africa. And what we've seen is that the business models that are resilient, that can scale, are usually oftentimes B2B models as opposed to B2C models. And we speak a lot about this, and it's a question of affordability. A lot of parents are willing to invest in education, and there's a statistic about African households are willing to spend up to 40% of their annual income on education. And education is like second after food in terms of expenditure for households. So there's a lot of emphasis on education in Africa, and we see it as obviously a stepping stone in terms of financial and social mobility. However, a lot of households do not have the disposable income to be able to go above and beyond the basic education provisions. So if you have a B2C model, the scalability of it can be challenged because there's not enough households that can go beyond, okay, I'm paying for the school fees, I'm paying for textbooks, I'm paying for school uniform, for food. And then over and above that, you want me to spend on, an extra e-learning platform where I have to think about the gadgets for that, smartphones. I have to think about the data spent for that. So you find that a lot of parents, within, low income, especially, which is where we look at, are not willing or do not even have the capacity to spend on EdTech solutions.
When we started considering institutional funding in 2019, 2020, and that was before COVID and the remarkable interest in EdTech investments, we realized that a lot of the funders in this space were looking for proof that you already at break even or almost break even. When we weren't making significant revenue, none of the institutional investors we spoke to had an interest in speaking with us. And I would say when it comes to EdTech investing, even right now, apart from this COVID era when there was a lot of investment being channeled into the EdTech space, right now it's pretty much back to normal where you need to be broken even or leading towards break even or having significant capital, having significant revenue for a lot of investment in the space to flow to you. So if I think through this and summarize the challenges and the lesson, I would say sadly, or the reality is that you need to be making revenue. That's number one. Number two, if you raise funds from angel networks, angel networks across Africa are still not very well developed. So you probably need to be raising at a much lower valuation and perhaps getting more dilution than other people will get in other more mature sectors, let's say like in fintech. And then finally, I would say, in terms of the lessons, it really helps to get an investor who is very aware or understands educational technology.
Stakeholders say they remain committed to driving a sustainable EdTech ecosystem in Africa.
And it's a wrap on the inaugural EdTech Conference by Mastercard Foundation here in the Federal Capital Territory in Nigeria. Stakeholders are looking forward to the next edition of this conference. Oh well, that's all we can take on this episode of Focus on Anaki Obakeye. Thank you for watching.